Okay, finally. Hi guys. Yeah, sorry not working. Like I posted in the chat. I don't know why, but before it was just stuck going live and wasn't actually live. But anyways, let's just get down to it. So I'm reading classic horror stories. I'm gonna at the front of it. I specifically got this book because it is like kind of like a velvet type of material for it, so it sounds really nice to me. I mean, like depending on what your personal preference is, it can feel nice too. Anyways, the front of it has all of the horror stories on it, and then on the back it says the road grew wilder and drearier and more faintly traced, and vanished at length, leaving him in the heart of the dark wilderness. Young Goodman Brown. The very front page actually has a very nice picture that I wish I could show you. It's of a like graveyard in a forest, probably around like dusk. I'm gonna read the contents now. The contents are The Telltale Heart from Edgar Allan Poe, Dracula's Guest from Bram Stoker, Kerfuffle, Edith Wharton, The Case of Lady Sonnox, Arthur Conan Doyle, Young Goodman Brown, Nathaniel Hawthorne, The Turn of the Screw, Henry James, The Man Who Found Out, El Algernon Blackwood, The Pit and the Pendulum, Edgar Allan Poe, The Vampire, John William Polidori, One Summer Night, Ambrose, um, I forgive me if I say any names wrong. Bryce, Beerus, not Beerus. That's the name of the character. Beerus, maybe. For the blood in For the blood is the life. F. Marion Crawford, Count Magnus, M. R. James, The Body Snatcher, Robert Louis Stevenson, uh, Shirley Vashtir Saki. By the way, you might hear my cats once in a while. Hi, she's right here. That's my cat Lucy. Anyway, the Horla, Guy de Montpezant, something like that. The Willows, Algernon Blackwood again. The Yellow Wall, Charlotte Peckins Gilman. The Mask of the Red Death, Edgar Allan Poe. The Outsider, H. P. Lovecraft. Conan Albrecht's scrapbook, M. R. James. The Trial for Murder, Charles Dickinson. The Succubus, Honoré de Balzac. The Damned Thing, Ambrosia Bierce. In the Penal Colony, Franz Kafka. The Interlopers, Saki. The Fall of the House of Usher, Edgar Allan Poe. The Japan Box. Am I reading that right? Bandit Box, I think. Author Conan Doyle. The Tomb. H.P. Lovecraft. And the very first story is The Telltale Heart. I have read this one before, but I'm more than happy to read it to you guys again. I don't know if I will read more or less. What I would preferably, I would like to read at least 2 stories, but we'll see how it goes. The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. True, nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous. I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all these things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken, hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once convinced, it haunted me day and night. Object there was none. Passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. He had the eye of a vulture, a pale blue eye, with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so, by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man, and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now, this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madness know nothing, but you should have seen me. You should have seen how widely, wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what fortnight, with what sorry, my eyes are messing up a little. Uh, dissimulation. I was so. I went to work. I I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him, and every night, about midnight, I turned to latch. Sorry, my eyes again. I turned the latch of his door and opened it, oh, so gently. And then, when I had an opening sufficient for my head, I put it in a dark. Oops, I lost my place. I put it in a dark lantern, all closed, that no light shone out, and I thrust in my head. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not absorb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed. Take my glasses off for a second here. Sorry. I lost my place now, of course. So very slowly, so I may not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed. How? I thought it said how. I was getting confused because that's the person's name. Oh no, sorry. It's an explanation point. My eyes are failing me today. Ha! Would a madman have been so wise as this? And then, when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern cautiously, oh, so cautiously, cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I undid it just so that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture, the vulture eye, and this I did for 7 long nights, every night, just as midnight, just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed, as it was impossible to do the work, for it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone, and how he had passed, inquiring how he had passed the night. So you see, he would have been a very profound old man. Indeed, to respect that every night, just at 12, I looked in upon him while he slept. Upon the 8th night I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves more quickly than mine did. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers, of my sagacity. I could scarcely contain any feelings of triumph. To think that there I was, opening the door little by little, and he not even to dream of my secret deed or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea, and perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly, as if startled. Now, you may think that I drew back, but no. His room was as black as pitch with the thick darkness, from the shutters were closed, fastened through fear of robbers, and so I knew that he would not see the opening of the door, and I kept pushing it on steadily, steadily. I had my head in, and was about to open the lantern, when my thumb slipped open the tin fastening. The old man sprang up in bed, crying out, "Who's there?" I kept quite still and said nothing. For a whole hour I did not move a muscle, and in the meantime I did not hear him lie down. He was still sitting up in his bed, listening, you as I have just as I have done, night after night, hearkening to the death watches in the wall. Presently I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of a mortal sorry, my eyes again. Of a mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or of grief, oh no. It was the low stifled sound that rises from the bottom of the soul when endangered with no with when overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well. Many a night, just at midnight, when all the world slept, it has welled up from my own bosom, deepening with its dreadful echoes. The terrors that distracted me, I say I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt and pitied him, although I chuckled at heart I knew that he had been lying awake even since the first slight noise when I had turned in the when he had turned in the bed. His fears had ever been growing upon him. He had been trying to fancy these fancy these causeless, but could not. He had been saying to himself, "It is nothing but the wind in the chimney. It is only a mouse crossing the floor," or "It is merely a cricket which has made a single chirp." Yes, he had been trying to comfort himself with these uh, su- yes, superstitions, but he had found it all in vain, all in because death is approaching him, because death in approaching him had walked with his black shadow before him and enveloped the victim, and it was the mournful influence of the unperceived shadow that caused him to feel, although he neither saw him not he neither saw nor heard him, to feel the presence of my head within the room. When I had when I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing him, he lay down. I resolved to ripen a little. I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until at length a simple dim ray, like the thread of a spider, shone out of the crevice and fell upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue, with hideous veil over it that chilled with every marrow in my bones, but I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, where I had directed the ray as if by instinct precisely upon the damned spot. And I have not told you what you mistake for madness is but over acuteness of the sense. Now, I say, there came to there came to my ears a low, dull, quirk, quick sound, such as what a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew the sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury, as the breathing of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage. But even yet, I refrained and still kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I knew how stealthily I could maximize the ray upon the eye. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and quicker and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say, louder every moment. Do you mock me? Well, I have told you that I am nervous, so I am. And now, at the dead hour of the night, mind the dreadful silence of the old house, so strong a noise as this excited me to uncomfortable terror. Yes, for some Minutes longer, I refrained and stood still, but the beating grew louder, louder. I thought the heart must burst, and now a new anxiety, seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I there opened I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once only in an instant. I dragged him to the floor, pulled the heavy bed over him. I then smiled. I then smiled gaily to find the deed so far done. But for every minute the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not did not vex me. It would not be heard through the wall. To length it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If will you think me mad, you will think it no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. The night waned, and I worked breathlessly but to silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head and the arms and the legs. I then took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber, deposited all between the scantlings. I then replaced the boards so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of my kind, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatsoever. I had been, I have, I have been too wary for that. A tub had caught all, ha ha. But I had made an end of those labors. It was 4 o'clock, still dark in the night, as the bell sounded the hour. There came a knocking in the. Oh, I gotta readjust myself. Okay, there came a knocking in the street door. At the street door, I went down to open it with a light heart. For what had I now to fear? There entered 3 men who introduced themselves with perfect uh, suavity, sorry, as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused. Information had been lodged at a police office. The officers, had been dispatched to search the premises. I'm gonna do this last part in a whisper. Just do. try it out because I haven't done any ASMR stuff whispering since some of my first videos, so I figured I'd give it a try. Okay. I smiled. What had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man I mentioned was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them at length to his chamber. I showed them his dressers, secure, undisturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. Officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted of familiar things here. But ere long, I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears. But still they sat and still chatted. The ringing became more distinct. It continued and became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued and gained deafness until at length I found that the noise was not within my ears. No doubt I now grew very pale, but I talked more fluently and with a heightened voice, yet the sound increased, and what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound. Much such a sound as a watch makes while enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath, and yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose and argued about truths in a high key with violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased. Why? Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observation of the men. But the noise steadily increased. Oh God, what could I do? I foamed. I raved. I swore. I swung the chair upon where I had been sitting and grated it upon the boards, but the noise was all over and continually increased. It grew louder, louder, and still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard me? Almighty God, no. They heard. Was it possible they not heard? Almighty God, no, they heard. They suspected, they knew. They were making a mockery of my word. This I thought, and I still in this I think. Anything was better than this agony. Anything was more tolerable than this decision. I could have been hypocritical. I could hear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die, and now again, hark, louder, louder, louder. Villains, I shrieked. Disassemble. No more, I admit the deed. I tore up the planks. Here. It is the beating of his hideous heart. And that ends The Telltale Heart from Edgar Allan Poe. Seeing how many pages the next one is. Next one is a few pages longer, not too much longer, but I think that this was a good starting point. Maybe another time I can do a longer stream, but I think for now I'm going to leave it here, and we can do another stream maybe tomorrow or the next day. Anyways, thank you guys for listening, not watching, because the camera doesn't work. And I will see you guys another time. Bye, lovelies.